Shalom and welcome to the Middle East Report. In this program, we shall be marking the first anniversary of October the 7th, the biggest mass terrorist attack in Israel's history by Hamas. And we'll also be discussing the unprecedented ballistic missile attack on Israel by Iran. I'll be asking what's next. And in this program today, I am joined by Itai Galmundy from Stop the Hate UK, together with Pastor Tim Gutmann from the Christian Action Against Anti-Semitism. Bit of a mouthful. But guys, warm welcome to the program. And Itai, it's a pleasure to have you on the program, especially as we are fast approaching, with only a few hours to spare, Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. So Shana Tova, on behalf of myself and on behalf of our viewers as well.
Thank you, and Shana Tova. I wish everyone who sees us today Happy New Jewish Year. Thank you for inviting me again. It's always a pleasure to come back, especially with Tim here. And thank you for having me speaking on that important matter of the 7th of October.
It's an absolute pleasure. Tim, I'll start off with you. So thanks to you and Haley and the wonderful team at Christian Action Against Anti-Semitism for organising the rallies, organising a kind of social media awareness about the plight of Israel from a biblical perspective and why it's so important that Christians stand with Israel and the Jewish people. You've just recently been on a mission trip to Kenya, educating pastors and leaders in Kenya about the importance of standing with Israel. Do you want to share with us your journey to East Africa?
Yeah, sure. As a church, as a charity, we have children's homes in Kenya that we partner with. But actually, while I was there, and before I got there, a load of the pastors and bishops in Kisumu, which is in the north, Nairobi, the main city, these guys are like, okay, we see what you do on Facebook and on Instagram. Can you teach us about Israel? So I said, yeah, of course, I'd love to do that. You know, this is my passion. So I did some teaching seminars on one day. I think there was 5 in one day where they want some full teaching about Israel biblically, but also Israel, what's going on in the world today. And I tell you, at the end of the convention, both in Kisumu and Nairobi, a whole bunch of pastors and bishops just on their knees praying for Israel. They all shouted, Am Yisrael High. One church, one cathedral actually in Nairobi, these guys are committing to do an all-night prayer meeting once a month on a Friday night just for Israel.
Kol hakavod. Yeah. Well done. Thank you for that report. And Itai, like I said, it's a pleasure to have you back on the program. But sadly, we have to discuss the horrors of October the 7th. But share with us how the high Jewish holidays, such as Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and of course Sukkot, are going to be very, very different this year because of what happened last year on October the 7th, which actually happened on a Shabbat, but also Simchat Torah, the giving of the law.
So obviously the high holidays this year are all painted with a brush of the 7th of October. For us, it's difficult to think about another year beginning without the last one being resolved. We Jews repent up to Yom Kippur and ask for forgiveness for all the bad we done in the past year. But we can't finalize the summary that we have to finalize at Rosh Hashanah because we still have 101 hostages in the tunnels of Gaza, that it feels almost unnatural for us to say Chag Sameach, Shana Tova, which means happy holiday and a happy new year, because happiness cannot be until those people are back where they belong with their families, alive and soon. And this is why these holidays are very difficult. It's coming up to 1 year, and we still have the hostages. And we are a nation that didn't have time to mourn our dead and to process and digest everything that happened just this year. And we keep being attacked constantly and from all fronts. And we need to use a lot of resilience in order to overcome it. So as a nation, we still haven't done our grieving procedures. We still haven't managed to finalize anything because we are still fighting for our very own existence. That's why these Jewish holidays are extremely difficult. We are thankful for having our families and having our country and having the amazing soldiers of the IDF doing such a, brilliant job, especially in the last couple of weeks, but all throughout these 11 months. Showing exemplary professionalism and a standard of combat that is unparalleled in the world. And I challenge any military that will conduct wars from now on to hold this as a gold standard and then see how they can level with us. So we're thankful for all of this at the beginning of the new year, but we are still very mindful of everything we lost this year and everything that we still need to achieve.
And we definitely salute the brave men and women of the IDF that are not only fighting for Israel's survival, but is also fighting for the West against this demonic evil ideology that comes from Hamas, Hezbollah, the Iranian regime, the Houthis, ISIS, you name it. And Tim, next week we shall be marking the first anniversary of October the 7th on Monday, the 7th of October. This is when Hamas murdered 1,200 Israelis and foreign nationals in cold blood. Most were civilians, 36 were actually children. They also murdered dogs as well. Many of those were raped and tortured. Over 3,400 were wounded, and some of those figures even say between 6,000 and 7,000 were wounded on October the 7th. Hamas took some 251 hostages. 8 have been rescued by the IDF. 109 were released in exchange deals, and the rest are still in captivity or dead. Share with us your thoughts on what was the biggest mass terrorist attack in Israel's history almost a year ago, back on October the 7th.
Yeah, part of my work, I've researched a lot about anti-Semitism in the past, particularly perpetrated by Christians. And, you read and you write about pogroms or massacres from medieval times. And the level of violence, you think you'd never see it again. And actually, we're aware that the IRGC has these arms such as Hamas and Hezbollah. And we're aware that they absolutely hate Israel, in fact, hate the Jewish people worldwide. But it was still a huge shock what happened on the 7th. We're talking a pogrom in the 21st century. The level of violence and hatred and wickedness, it took me by surprise. And as Itai was saying, we know as a community the Jewish people haven't even had a chance to process the trauma. It was extreme, and no chance to grieve. There are still, as we've said, so many hostages in the tunnels. And what took place, I think, hopefully woke up many Christians, many of the world, to see this is the level of hatred. And then on the same day, these guys were giving speeches saying, yeah, we're going to destroy Israel, kill all the Jews, and then we're going to come for Rome. And our message is always, standing with Israel, standing and supporting and showing solidarity to the Jewish people. It's just about right and wrong. This is a nation attacked for no reason other than they're Jewish. A nation murdered and slaughtered with the kind of violence you read about in medieval times. And the craziness is the reaction of so many in the West, flying those Hezbollah flags at first, those Hamas flags, on the streets, celebrating even before Israel dropped a bomb. It's shocking in a way, but we know there's something dark, something spiritual at play here.
Absolutely. So let's have a look at this CBN News report that actually followed the horrific events of October the 7th. And this was their first full report of the horrors that unfolded on October the 7th a year ago.
48 hours after Hamas's invasion on October 7th, the IDF says it has regained control of all the towns on the Gaza border, while Defense Minister Yoav Gallant has ordered a complete siege of the Gaza Strip. Following the invasion, the numbers are staggering. As many as 700 Israelis murdered, almost 3,000 injured, many seriously, and up to 100 kidnapped and taken into captivity in Gaza. The images horrifying. Armed terrorists roaming Israeli communities at will and murdering anyone in sight. Elderly women and men dead on the street. Whole families inside their homes slaughtered, with more than 200 killed at an outdoor dance festival. The atrocities reminiscent of ISIS. Bodies of the dead being desecrated in the streets of Gaza. A captured 85-year-old grandmother with dementia being mocked in this photo. This 7-year-old boy being tormented by young Gazan boys with a whip. A 1-year-old being toyed with by this Hamas terrorist. And this Israeli woman named Noah kidnapped at a concert. Her fiancé dragged along, and her father in anguish. Israel is now on a war footing, with up to 300,000 reservists called up to action. Many anticipate a ground incursion into Gaza soon, with the likely goal the destruction of the Iranian-backed terror group.
Now, for us, it's a time to get organized and to get prepared for the attack against the militia of Hamas. And I call the Prime Minister to take a different approach. We have to eradicate Hamas, period.
The Wall Street Journal is reporting Iran worked directly with Hamas to plot and plan the invasion, while a Hamas spokesman thanked Iran for its support. Major questions do remain. How did this colossal intelligence failure happen? Will Hezbollah enter the war? Regardless of those answers, Israel now finds itself in a new era.
This is a paradigm shift for Israel. The prime minister, the cabinet, the heads of the military, it's clear to everybody that for an attack to be carried out against the Israeli people, we're in a new world, a new region, and our response will be unlimited to what we are going to do to successfully carry out our mission. Whatever that means, all options are on the table.
And we all really appreciate the honesty and the integrity of CBN and their coverage of Israel and Israel's war against these genocidal terrorist organizations such as Hamas and Hezbollah. Itai, do you think the world has actually forgotten so quickly the horrors that happened on October the 7th? I mean, we described this as not only barbaric, but this was probably the worst atrocities committed against any nation or people in the 21st century, the biggest mass terrorist attack in Israel's history, the largest massacre of the Jewish people since the Holocaust over 80 years ago, and the rest of the international community, including in the White House and including 10 Downing Street and other European governments, tend to think that what happened to Israel was insignificant and that Israel should have just taken that blow by Hamas and absorbed world sympathy without attacking and defending her own people.
Well, I think you said it yourself. The worst attack on Jewish people since the Holocaust in the land of Israel. I'm holding myself here to say, you know, what every Israeli is thinking. We probably live in a twilight zone right now because the world seems to go upside down completely. The victims become the villain become the victim, and we see Western countries being run to appease the mob. That's the only thing I can come up with. We see the UK government playing 1930 politics to appease terrorists, stopping arming Israel, removing the objection to the ICJ and the ICC warrants. What's happened? What happened since? What happened to this great nation and a lot of other great nations that talked a lot about fighting terrorism wherever it is around the globe? Just after 9/11, this great country and America went over half the world to Afghanistan to conduct a war for 20 years. 20 years they conducted a war in the name of fighting terrorism. But when it's Jews, it's always you need to turn your other cheek. The double standard is beyond annoying at this stage. We always hearing that Israel has the right to defend itself. But it has the right, but it cannot defend itself.
Yeah, that's right.
Because Jews are not allowed to be strong. Jews are not allowed to stand up for themselves. We need the mercy of the world. So obviously this notion is ludicrous. And as the IDF and security forces of Israel have established well and truly in the past 2 weeks, but again, throughout this period, is that Jews are not going to seek anyone's help. We are here to do it for ourselves. We don't need your approvals, and we don't look for your right or wrong. You do what you do, and we'll do what's needed to do for the country of Israel. And it's just shocking to see the level of double standard when it comes to Jews and everyone else. Assad slaughtered his own people, 500,000 of them. We didn't hear a peep. In Yemen, Yemenis are starving to death because of a terrorist group. But we don't hear a peep about that. In China, 2 million people are in re-education concentration camps, but we don't hear a peep about this. But Israel, precise targeting of Hezbollah terrorists is being condemned by the United Nations, by the BBC, by the governments, by everyone. And you ask yourself, a moment ago you told us we have the right to defend ourselves. How do you think that's going to look like? I mean, what does it look like for them? Turning the other cheek, those days are gone. Those Jews are dead in 1945. The new Jews don't turn their other cheeks.
And that is that Israeli spirit from 48, 67, Yom Kippur War 73, and also Israel in 2024. And Tim, what are your thoughts on what's happened since October the 7th? And this is this unprecedented rise in Jew hatred across the world, in this country, across the Western world, as well as this incredible demonization of Israel. And of course, we've seen that these dark forces are merging to threaten our own very democracy here in the UK, because as a nation, we fail to stand up to those that hate Israel and those that support genocidal terrorist activities of Hamas and Hezbollah.
Yeah, Itai articulated it so well. You know, we live in this upside down world. And this is the thing about anti-Semitism and Jew hatred. It makes no sense. Here we have an ally, democratic ally, invaded and slaughtered in the most horrific ways, defending itself precisely, and there's people in their thousands on the streets. And there's bias in the media and the politicians. And here's the point about anti-Semitism. And I'm just going to bring this in as a reverend and as a Christian. I believe it's dark, it's spiritual, it doesn't make sense, it's illogical. And what we're seeing when a people are attacked, when a people are so hated that what happened on October the 7th happened, for the response of so many in the world to be what it's been since then, it doesn't make any sense at all unless you realize this is darkness. You know, this is demonic actually. And what I've seen, I've been hugely disappointed. I mean, there's no surprise with the UN, no surprise with the BBC, sadly, nowadays. But hugely disappointed as well. So many Christian leaders. We gave a statement recently when the Archbishop said the governments of the world should agree with the ICJ and the UN. And he gave this statement because the ICJ released this opinion based on a UN resolution in a year when Israel had 15 resolutions against it, which was more than the rest of the world combined. Does that make sense? More than North Korea, China, Iran, I mean, Russia. And this was 2021. This makes no sense at all. The only explanation is anti-Semitism. Every generation, without a shadow of a doubt, there's a movement, there's a darkness that wants to eradicate the Jewish people. We've not seen that this level since the Holocaust, but here we are, we're here. But the difference is, as Itai said, the Jewish people have a nation. They are strong. They are, like Itai, they are warriors. They're not going to take this. They're going to destroy their enemies, and God is with them. I know that.
Amen to that. Thank you, Tim. And Itai, isn't it important that our viewers understand that Israel is facing a multi-front war, that this is after October the 7th. This is just not a war against Hamas. And now, over the last few weeks, that war and battlefield has shifted to southern Lebanon against Hezbollah, but it's also against the Houthis, as you mentioned, in Yemen. The Iranians also have proxies in Syria and in Iraq that have been firing rockets and missiles in Israel as well. And all of this has been orchestrated by the Iranian regime. It's almost as if we are that Israel needs a confrontation with the Islamic Republic of Iran in order for Israel to live at peace and see a restoration of peace and stability and prosperity in the Middle East. Will only happen when this Iranian regime is literally wiped out. Your thoughts?
Well, look, we all know the nature of the current Iranian regime, the IRGC, a regime that has no legitimacy, not even from his own people, a regime that is vile and wicked, first and foremost against Iranian people, and I personally hope that soon they will disappear from the map of they will go to the bin of history.
They will.
Especially after we saw what happened yesterday night with the what one can only describe it as a barbaric attack against a sovereign state by 200 missiles, ballistic missiles, indiscriminately to town and city centers. And again, we hear the world tell us that it's time for diplomacy, we should really be sensible. I mean, we just been attacked by 200 ballistic missiles. What is the measured response for something like that? That's exactly what we see. You said it yourself, it looks like Israel and Iran is on some kind of a inevitable crash course. We see all the proxies being run down one by one.
Let's rephrase that. Being destroyed one by one.
Yeah.
Not run down, but destroyed.
Yeah, destroyed. Yeah, destroyed to a level where I don't think Hezbollah has any appetite for any fight right now. And if they do, our brave soldiers should be handling it well, hopefully. We hold our fingers for them. But it's beyond this. As you said, it's the Houthis. As you said, it's the militias in Iraq. I think the world needs to recognize that there is only one head to the snake, and that's the Ayatollah and the IRGC. The sooner you're going to get rid of the head of the snake, the body will die. And we need to leave it at that. The forces of nature are now in play, and we should let...
and for our viewers who don't know, the IRGC is the Iranian Revolutionary Guards Corps that is the kind of military force of the Iranian regime. And of course, then we have other dangerous militias that are associated with the IRGC as well. Namely the Basijis, their internal terror force that suppress the Iranian people. Tim, what do you make of what I can only describe as the unprecedented ballistic rocket let's not use rockets, let's use missiles. Ballistic missile attack on Israel on a Tuesday night when the Iranian regime fired from its territory 200 missiles. But praise God, we saw divine protection of the Jewish state where there was not one single casualty or injury, and that is nothing less than a miracle, is it not?
It's a miracle. There was only one death, actually. That was a Palestinian man in the West Bank. Have full confidence that God is protecting Israel, fights for Israel. Full confidence in the IDF. What they've done against Hezbollah in the last 2 weeks has been unprecedented. In fact, if I was a member of the IRGC, if I was the Ayatollah, I'd be hiding under some.
He is hiding. He is hiding right now.
And I would encourage you. You keep talking about God being with you. Why don't you come out and test that theory? Come out and just stand in the open and just see if God protects you. Because let me tell you this: you can see what the IDF have achieved against Hezbollah, and our last show was against Hezbollah, actually.
Exactly, yeah.
And we were talking about this very thing. I truly believe, actually, what the IRGC did, sending these missiles indiscriminately, was the dumbest thing they could do, politically speaking, because now Israel has a a reason to escalate and respond, and they can take out nuclear facilities and oil rigs, and hopefully they will, because this is a regime and a hatred that's not going anywhere. Hezbollah, Hamas, Houthis, Hanaya, it's like Hitler and Haman. We see what happens. We know that God will destroy the enemies of Israel, and now the IRGC have shown their hand too quick, and I think this is good. What the enemy meant for harm, there's a verse in the Genesis in the Torah, God will turn it around, and we can see then Israel now can have a complete victory over the IRGC.
Absolutely, absolutely. Itai, I have very close Israeli friends in Israel. They live in Herzliya, and they're like family to my wife and myself, and also to my family as well. Known them for over 20 years, and more than 20 years, and come out for 30 years. And they're very, very close. So for me, it feels like I have my own family in Israel. And sadly, on Tuesday night this week, my friend Tal had to take her youngest son, who was having a bath, to go into one of the bomb shelters in her apartment block with only 13 minutes. And of course, then other pictures we saw as well. Show us what it's like for Israelis to be living under this barrage of now Iranian ballistic missiles.
So, look, think about it. It doesn't matter if it's Iranian ballistic rocket missiles, if it's a Houthi ballistic missile, if it's a rocket from Gaza. If it falls on your house, that's game over most chances. So if you have sometime as little as 40 seconds to get into a shelter, imagine how it is to plan your life in 40-second segments, because that's what it means for the people in Israel in some parts. 40 seconds, that's the segment. So when your kid goes a bit further away from you, you need to make sure he's 40 seconds from the shelter, because that's what it means. He needs to be in that safe room. Now think about your children. I know about my children. I think about myself. Can you imagine how difficult it is? I spoke to my friend yesterday after the attack, the Iranian attack, which again, thanks to the IDF, there was no major damage. And he told me, listen, I can't plan a week ahead. I can't plan a week ahead. I don't know. I wake up and I don't know if tomorrow my kid's going to have school. I don't know if I'll be able to go to work. Now imagine about running your daily life, nothing big. No, I'm not talking about holidays or anything like that. Just your day-to-day. Work, coming back from work, having your children at school. Is there going to be a missile attack? Are they safe at school? Should I stay home? Should we go to the supermarket? Should we come back? That's how the people of Israel are living for 11 months now. And some would say for 18 or 20 years since we pulled out from Gaza, 18 years since we pulled out from Gaza, people in the south of Lebanon, or in the south of Israel, have been living under 40 seconds, sometimes even less, to get to their shelters.
Wow.
This is completely insane when you take in mind that there is some people who are not young and fit. There are elderly, there is pregnant women, there is children who live, there is communities who live around there. Yeah. The same in the north. Now we have the same in the north. And it's a horrible feeling, that sense of uncertainty, the sense of a parent. Can you imagine as a parent to be not be able to tell your child safely, knowing, yes, you can go play across the street with the swings. I'll keep an eye on you. But if it's more than 40 seconds or 1 minute, can you really do it with the whole heart, knowing that you send your child? It is unacceptable. It is unacceptable. And again, I say the double standard is amazing, because show me other nations who would accept those kinds of conditions. We've been accepting it for 18 years since we pulled out from Gaza, and now 11 months from Hezbollah. Enough is enough, isn't it?
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing what it's like to be in Israeli shoes, and our hearts go out to you and the Israeli people. And enough is enough. We're backing you, we're supporting you, and this is what this program is about: standing in solidarity with the Jewish people in Israel during this crisis. And also, I want to bring in the kind of spiritual dimensions, Tim, as well, because as Christians, we are commanded to pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Isaiah 40 tells us to, from the prophet Isaiah, comfort ye my people Israel. And I know that you are doing that incredibly well. But share with us how, as Christians, we really need to step up our prayers and intercessions for Israel. And we can see the example of God's hand of protection, particularly over that 200 ballistic missiles that fired at Israel this week.
Yeah, absolutely. And I keep saying the same thing to Christians and to pastors and ministers. Listen, historically, we majorly sinned against the Jewish people in our name. When Christians persecuted the Jewish people, a lot of anti-Semitism came from Christians. A lot of today's tropes, baby killer, all of this stuff you see in the media actually started in Christianity. I think now is this time, this window when we should be making our voices heard the most, a real key time to show love, support, solidarity. So many Jewish people tell me, you know what, we thought we were alone. We never knew there was people like you to support us. So we want the Christians to really magnify their voices, because we keep talking about the silent majority, and I know many Christians don't know how to make their voice heard, but just making ourselves heard that we stand with Israel, we stand with the Jewish people worldwide. It's so badly needed when the Jewish people feel alone. It's an opportunity, actually, opportunity to show we love.
Yeah, and Itai, I just want for you to unpack for us what we saw over the past 2 weeks, which is unprecedented. Probably some of the greatest military operations, secret intelligence operations ever carried out by the IDF and the Mossad in the history of Israel, to actually plant little explosive devices in pagers and walkie-talkies that has literally taken out over 4,000 Hezbollah terror operatives, and probably the figure's much bigger, and then taking out the elite leadership of Hezbollah, followed by the assassination of Sheikh Nasrallah, the terror chief of Hezbollah that Israel's been trying to target now for over 30 years and has eluded them each time. And he was actually believed to be killed because a spy working on behalf of Israel, who was an Iranian, shook his hand, and his hand then had a chemical device that alerted Israel's drones to where he was, and then Israel could carry out that attack on his headquarters, not only killing him, but also representatives of the Iranian Revolutionary Guards and his entire leadership, and to take out the entire leadership of Hezbollah. We're talking about the most dangerous and the most sophisticated terrorist organization in the world, which is the jewel in the crown of the Iranian regime. How did Israel do it?
Well, I mean, just like you, I watched it from afar in awe. I mean, this is the kind, let's be honest, this is the kind of stuff that you watch in James Bond movies and you say, that's only the movies. So then comes the Mossad and show you that what you thought is only the movies is reality. But all jokes aside, I mean, we all understand, or we can start to understand now what kind of an effort it requires to achieve or to accomplish, to unfold a mission of such magnitude. I mean, this is, again, the stuff that definitely movies, Hollywood movies will be made about this operation. I think that, again, we talked about it before we came on the show, and I said, look, for everyone who was doubting, the last time I was on this show, we talked about Hezbollah and how would it be for Israel, and I was very wary, I have to admit. I thought it would be loads of missiles and it will be a catastrophe, and it could still go very wrong, everything. But if the past 2 weeks is any kind of a preview to what's waiting in store for them or for the IRGC, I mean, the future looks great for Israel, a bit less for the IRGC and their proxies. I mean, what can you say? It's difficult to even start to think that you understand, because it's so complex and so you said yourself, we don't know exactly what happened or how it came about, but there is talks about some chemical adhesive that was put on his hand without him feeling, which alerted a drone, which so complex, so fine details, and that comes after big success of annihilating Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran, in a Revolutionary Guard hotel, you know, and Muhammad Def in his tent. Anyone who ever doubted Israel should hold on, take off his hat, and say, I'm sorry, I was prejudging and I think I made a mistake. It's not a shame to apologize. It's never too late, they say.
And Tim, I think we have to unpack this very evil plan that Hezbollah had devised back in 2015. And in terms of those intelligence reports that have been given to the media, particularly the Israeli media, that they were planning to carry out this attack in early August of this year, where they were going to launch thousands of rockets and missiles into Israel on one particular day to overwhelm Israel's Iron Dome defense system, followed by an invasion of 5,000 of elite Hezbollah terrorists to invade the Galilee, called Conquer the Galilee. And this would have made October the 7th look like a walk in the park. And share with us how the Israeli intelligence got wind of this and was able to then prevent another October the 7th genocide. This time it would have been committed by Hezbollah, and this is why Israel's taken the action that she has over the past 2 weeks to ensure that this never ever happens again.
Yeah, when I read about this, you know, in one way I wasn't surprised, but they wanted to dwarf October the 7th. You know, they wanted to be let loose on the Jewish communities in Galilee and the most unspeakable things. But like we've been saying, the IDF have been working so hard, actually I think unprecedented on any military or any secret service in the whole world. I think it's incredible. I think I've heard about miraculous stories in 48, 67, 72. I've heard about the enemy fleeing the battlefield, and we're at that kind of like level of miraculous like stuff by the IDF and by Mossad. But I think, you know, God's hand is on this, and what you've seen over the last 2 weeks and how Israel has prevented, and everybody's thinking, oh, they're so elite and there's so many missiles, and they've been taking out missiles and launchers and commanders. I think at the end of the day, Am Yisrael High, because God is the God of Israel. Great is the God of Israel.
Absolutely. So if you want to know more information about Hezbollah's plan called the Operation Conquer Galilee, let's have a look at this excellent videos produced by the Israeli Defense Force that reveal Hamas's evil and despicable plan that's been thwarted by the IDF.
Do you know what Hezbollah's Endgame for Israel looks like? Their operational plan, called Conquer the Galilee, published in 2015, looks exactly like what Hamas carried out on October 7th, but on a much larger scale. Take a look at the footage that Hezbollah released themselves. First, they plan to hit northern Israel with hundreds of rockets at once, like this. Then, 5,000 Hezbollah militants would break through the border and invade Israel, like this. Occupying Israel in 5 stages and indiscriminately murdering as many people as possible. Stage 1. Take over the northernmost cities with firepower and take civilians hostage, just like this. Stage 2. Take over the main junction and highways, giving them unrestricted access to most of northern Israel and making it difficult for the IDF to reach them. Stage 3. Take over 3 of Israel's Arab villages, again killing indiscriminately. This would turn the Arab villages into a vantage point from which to fire at any incoming IDF forces. And on and on. When the world came together and said that October 7th can never happen again, that means stopping Hezbollah from carrying out Operation Conquer the Galilee. It means stopping Hezbollah or any other terrorist group from committing the same atrocities against Israelis that Hamas did. This is why we're fighting Hezbollah now, to make sure that their evil plan can never be executed.
The Israel Defense Forces has launched a defensive operation against the Hezbollah terror organization by conducting precise, intelligence-based strikes on hundreds of Hezbollah targets. Our goal is to thwart imminent attacks planned by Hezbollah, who intended to fire the very weapons that we destroyed at Israeli homes. Our goal is to make sure that Israeli families can safely and securely return to their homes. Where was Hezbollah hiding these weapons? Inside Lebanese homes. For the last 20 years, Hezbollah built its terror network within population centers in Lebanon, primarily throughout southern Lebanon, an area that they turned almost entirely into a launch pad to attack Israel. According to Israeli intelligence, it is estimated that in every 2 to 3 homes in southern Lebanon, there's a Hezbollah terror asset hidden inside. The IDF has released concrete intelligence documenting Hezbollah's human shield strategy. Here are a few examples of hundreds of targets. A long-range cruise missile with a 1,000-kilogram warhead that Hezbollah planned to launch at Israel, hidden in the attic of a Lebanese home. This is real footage from one such home. The DR-3 cruise missile with a warhead of up to 300 kilograms that Hezbollah intended to use to kill Israelis, hidden inside a residential building in Lebanon. This is real footage from one such building. You can see the secondary explosions, proving that we did target and indeed hit weapons inside those homes. On October 8th, Hezbollah started attacking Israel. They chose to join the war that Hamas started on October 7th with their brutal massacre. Since October 8th, 60,000 Israeli people evacuated their homes, and Hezbollah has indiscriminately fired over 9,000 rockets at Israeli homes, causing death and destruction. One of these attacks killed 12 kids playing soccer on a Saturday night in Majd al-Shams. After almost a year of Hezbollah rockets, missiles, suicide drones, and ground attacks. After almost a year of Israel calling and seeking a diplomatic solution. After almost a year of restraint from Israel, our defensive operation against Hezbollah sends a clear message. Enough is enough. Prior to our strikes on the Hezbollah weapons that they intended to launch at Israeli homes, we called on the Lebanese people with weapons in their homes to move out of danger, move out of harm's way. We conveyed this message in Arabic on TV and social media. We sent text messages and made phone calls. Israel is basically telegraphing its punches to its enemy so that it can minimize civilian harm. Hezbollah, however, seeks to maximize harm to the Lebanese civilians that it uses as human shields. Hezbollah called on Lebanese civilians to stay put, don't evacuate. While Hezbollah targets civilians, Israel is solely striking Hezbollah terrorist and military targets. We do this in full compliance with international law. Israel is a democratic state under threat from a terror organization whose stated goal is to destroy Israel. Hezbollah has openly declared that it has a plan to carry out its own October the 7th massacre on Israel's northern border, but on an even larger scale. They call this plan Conquer the Galilee. For years, Hezbollah has been planning to do in northern Israel what Hamas did in southern Israel on October 7th: invade Israel, infiltrate civilian communities, and massacre innocent civilians. When the world came together and said that October the 7th can never happen again, the defensive action that Israel has been taking against Hezbollah fulfills that promise. Hezbollah planned to launch their October the 7th attack from the villages that they've been building their forces in for the last 2 decades. These villages, which are just across the border from Israel, have become bases of attacks. Just like this village, Kfar Kileh, which is located 350 meters from the Israeli community of Matula. Here you can see a Hezbollah weapons warehouse that they intentionally placed 100 meters from this school here and 125 meters from this mosque here. And this Lebanese village, Itai, which is approximately a kilometer away from the border with Israel. Hezbollah intentionally built 2 weapons warehouses in the heart of the civilian population here. 100 meters away, a mosque. 150 meters away, a medical clinic. 200 meters away, a Lebanese school. For the past 2 decades, Hezbollah has consistently and relentlessly deepened its presence in southern Lebanon, building outposts along the Blue Line, hiding massive amounts of arms in the villages of southern Lebanon in clear violation of UN Security Council Resolution 1701. We have a duty to make sure that Israeli civilians can return safely and securely back to their homes. We have a duty to make sure that October the 7th never happens again on any one of our borders.
And those videos were courtesy of our friends at the IDF, who are doing a superb job in not only defending Israel, but also putting the fear of God into Israel's enemies, namely the Iranian regime, Hamas, and also Hezbollah. And they certainly know about the wrath of God right now. Itai, share with us how, for example, it's essential that the Hezbollah are moved out of southern Lebanon, and essentially their military and terrorism capabilities are destroyed, so 60,000 plus Israelis can go back to their homes in the north of Israel and live in peace, not fearing an October the 7th style attack on their communities in the north that Hezbollah would have done, and they had the will to do it, the plan to do it, but has been thwarted by Israeli intelligence.
So we know that Hezbollah, as you said, planned a coordinated attack, Hamas style, over the Galilee. What most people don't remember is that after the war in 2006, there is a resolution of the United Nations 1700 and 1701, and those two resolutions, agree that Lebanon should do everything within its power to stop Hezbollah from getting arms, and there would be no Hezbollah fighters southern than the Litani River, which is in Lebanon. 18 years passed, and completely nobody speaks about it. Not the media, not in the United Nations. Even though they criticize Israel for attacking Lebanon, they don't criticize Lebanon for neglecting their first and foremost responsibility for their civilians is protect them from terror. They don't do anything against Hezbollah, but nobody in the United Nations is even honest enough to say we failed. We failed Israel by preventing Hezbollah to go southern of the Litani River, and hence forcing Israel with the back to the wall to do something. Because as you said, it's not 60,000, it's 90,000 people who live on the northern, in the northern territory, which need to come back to their home, because as we are celebrating today, we are starting a new year. And nobody should start a new year outside of his house. And the situation which we accepted and facilitated for 11, almost 12 months is unattainable anymore for Israel, because we have communities that's been displaced. 10% of Israel landmass is unlivable at the moment because of terrorists firing rockets from a sovereign state. It's unacceptable. Nobody else would accept it. Again, I keep coming back to, you say, what does Israel need to do? That's exactly what Israel needs to do in order to get these 90,000 people back in their homes, repairing their homes, repairing those communities which have been severely damaged, let alone the environmental damage that's going on in that area in Israel.
Which is the most beautiful area of Israel.
Yes,
the
it
Upper
is indeed.
Galilee, Kiryat Shmona, the Golan Heights, and what have you. Anyway, thanks to the Israeli embassy in London, we have a special message from the Israeli ambassador to the UK, Zippy Hotter-Levy, who is now will address our viewers of the Middle East Report and Revelation TV.
Dear friends, today marks exactly 1 year since Hamas launched their barbaric attack on Israel, murdering over 1,200 innocent people and kidnapping another 254 civilians. 365 days on, and 101 hostages remain in Hamas captivity in Gaza. We pray for their safe return. Our hearts also go out to their families who don't know when their loved ones will return home. For all Israelis, this chapter has been the darkest in the modern history of the state of Israel. While we seek to remove Hamas from Gaza, we also seek to restore security for our citizens in northern Israel. Over 60,000 Israeli citizens have been forced from their homes by ongoing rocket fire from Hezbollah. Further away, Iran continues to pose a threat to Israel and destabilize the region through its proxies. Israel will continue defending itself and will do all it can to restore the safety and security of our people. Israel will never stop demanding the safe release of all our hostages. I want to thank you, the British people, for your unwavering support and incredible solidarity. We are grateful for your continued friendship. Together, we stand united in the face of violence and extremism. We are committed to ensuring that the atrocities of the 7th of October will never happen again. Israel.
And very much hold very dear the friendship and the cooperation we have with our friends at the Israeli Embassy, who are doing an incredible job under fire representing the State of Israel on all fronts. And so kol hakavod to the ambassador and all the diplomats are working at the Israeli Embassy, and we want to wish them a happy new year, Shana Tova, and keep up the great work you're doing in defending Israel in this country. I just want to discuss briefly, as we've looked past the past year, marking the first anniversary of October the 7th, it looked like on October the 7th, in the aftermath of this biggest mass terrorist attack in Israel's history, even for a few months as Israel launched its ground incursion into Gaza to destroy Hamas, that Israel was losing this war, that public opinion was turning against Israel. Israel was on its knees, and yet we see that Israel has dramatically changed this situation around in the past year. Destroying two of the most dangerous, formidable Islamist organizations in the process, namely Hamas and Hezbollah, and now have the Iranian regime on its side. Share with us how God works miracles and turns things around when Christians start really praying and interceding for Israel and the Jewish people and standing in that gap. Just as Aaron did when he prayed for Moses when Moses went into battle.
100%. Listen, the Bible says, Zechariah 2:8, it says, the Jewish people of Israel is the apple of my eye. You don't want to poke God in the eye, right? And when Christians stand with Israel, when I think about our past of anti-Semitism done in our name, I think that breaks God's heart. Jesus himself, Jewish, we've got so much to be grateful for. When it talks about, I will bless those who bless you, curse those who curse you, this is actually about Israel being a blessing to the nations. And of course they're a blessing to the nations. This young nation has given the world so much in such a short time, technological.
So can I say a young nation, but also an old nation?
Yeah, this rebirth of this ancient nation.
That's it. That's more like it, Tim.
Yeah, the rebirth of this ancient nation has already in such a short time blessed the world so much. But spiritually, as a Christian, what have they given? They've given the Bible, the prophets, the apostles, and of course Jesus, who identifies as Jewish in his resurrected state. He didn't suddenly turn into a Gentile. He's, the root and offspring of David, it says in Revelation, the line of the tribe of Judah. When the people and when they hate and try and destroy Israel and the Jewish people, they're fighting against God. When Christians show love and solidarity, it's pleasing to God, it's pleasing to Jesus, because this is undeserved, this is darkness. The devil hates the Jewish people, he hates Christians, and I think we need to be like family in this.
Absolutely. And finally, Itai, thank you for being on this program. I know that time is short because it's Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year. On behalf of our viewers, we want to thank you for representing the nation of Israel on this program. We want to show our love and solidarity to you and the Israeli people, and want to wish you Shana Tova. And we know that you're going to have a better year in 2024 going into 2025 because God is with you. Tim, great job as always, and Itai, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you for watching this program at home. For our Jewish people, for our Jewish viewers watching this program, Shana Tova and Nahag Sameach. I know it's a difficult new year for you all because you've been through so much pain and agony, but you're coming out the other side, and the other side is looking brighter because the God of Israel is with you. So thank you for watching this week's edition of the Middle East Report.
I'm Israel High.
I'm Israel High.